Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Com 498 Show. I'm Tony Palmeri from the Communication Studies program at UW Oshkosh. Really thrilled today to be joined by one of our Com Studies graduates who has become a literal Hollywood star, and her name is Paige Bonanno. Paige, thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to see you, to be here. This is great.
It really is. I'm really excited to do this interview. And you graduated December of 2014,
That's right.
and you were a minor in radio, TV, film, and journalism.
Mhm,
You almost, very soon after you graduated, you did go to California.
mhm.
And today you are an executive producer at Walt Disney Studios.
That's right.
And we'll talk about some of your work, but your most immediate honor, I should say, is you've been nominated, you and your team have
Mhm.
been nominated for an Emmy Award for a
Yes.
commercial. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it actually just happened like 2 days ago, and we're all completely thrilled. Cannot believe that this has happened. We're nominated for Outstanding Commercial for the Emmys. And yeah, we worked on a spot called The Boy and the Octopus. It was a holiday ad commercial for Disney, and it did really well. We actually won a Bronze Can Lion for it recently.
Wow.
Yeah, which was a huge honor. And we also got a few Clio awards for it. We got a British Aero Award. So we just were seeing this year the momentum that it had gained. It got a lot of views on YouTube. It was on Disney Plus. So we were just absolutely thrilled with the response because it was the first time that Disney had done a holiday ad in this vein. So very, very excited about it. Thank you for, yeah, bringing that up. Very,
Well, I will tell the audience you can go to YouTube and do a search of The Boy and the Octopus. It's about a 4-minute commercial.
yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
almost
and
like a short film.
I can personally testify it is a tearjerker. So it will
We love it.
it will
Yeah.
get you going.
Yeah, it's about a 4 minute ad. It's almost we were calling it a short film, like a holiday short. And our director was Taika Waititi, who he's a big actor and a director, so that was a big play for us. And he was wonderful to work with, and we had a great experience with it. So yeah, definitely go give it a watch.
Now, were you the producer? Was that your title for this commercial?
Yeah, it was more so we at Disney were kind of the client of it, and then we worked with an agency and a production company. So my job was basically, more creative direction. So we worked on the script with them. We did a lot of iterations with the team, getting the story right, and then I actually went on set to oversee the production as well from the Disney side,
Wow.
which we actually shot it in Mallorca in Spain and in Prague last year. And so
Wow.
it was such a blast and such an honor to be able to do that and work with the team that we worked with. And yeah, it was a really, really good time. And then we also, after that, oversaw the edit, oversaw the composition, the music, the sound design, the graphics. So we kind of, oversee it from inception of the idea all the way through completion in the final edit when it's shipped off to Disney Plus.
Wow. So you got to travel to Spain and Czechoslovakia
Yeah.
to be
The
part
Czech
of this
Republic.
project.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. It was a great time.
Well, and I'm not surprised, Paige, because one thing I did not mention in the intro is that in 2018, you came back to UW Oshkosh and you were awarded a Distinguished Young Alumni. And that was only 4 years after you graduated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we knew you were going places, and then being nominated for this Emmy is really not all that surprising. But let's
Thank
go
you.
back to your start. So where are you from originally,
Yep.
and
I'm
then
from,
what got you to UW Oshkosh?
yep, definitely. So I'm from Kenosha, Wisconsin. I grew up there, my whole life was living in Kenosha. And then I went to Oshkosh, obviously, for undergrad. And it's funny because I toured a few different universities. I was thinking about Madison at some point. I looked into Milwaukee, I looked into Minnesota, some of the bigger schools. And when I went to Oshkosh, I remember I actually, for whatever reason, I didn't know anything about Oshkosh. I didn't know much. I knew, Wisconsin and Minnesota for like the big schools. And so then my mom was like, let's just go see UW Oshkosh. I'm like, where's that? What is it? And I got there and I absolutely fell in love with the campus. Just I loved the intimacy of it. I loved obviously they had the communication program, the radio TV film program, the journalism program, all these things that I felt like, okay, I could kind of see myself doing that. And it was really the campus though that made me fall in love with UWO. And then I also liked that none of my friends were really going there because even though Kenosha's not that far away, most of the people from Kenosha went to Milwaukee. So I was like, it'd be nice to kind of, make a new network and kind of start over. So went to UWO and I absolutely loved it. It was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, especially because it was a smaller school. I
Yeah.
felt like I got a lot of individualized attention from professors, and I was able to just really network in a way that kind of stood out instead of being in these big lecture halls. And, you just get that intimacy. And I really, that was a big reason why I wanted to choose it.
Excellent. In a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about your experience in the Comm Studies program. But when you graduated in December of 14, what did you do immediately after that? So how did you get from your graduation to becoming executive producer at Disney?
Yeah. So I remember I had originally done an internship in Los Angeles when I was, I think, a sophomore at UWO. So that was my first taste of experiencing LA, kind of seeing, I knew I wanted to work in the entertainment industry, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And that's actually why I studied communication in the first place, because I had thought I might want to do broadcast journalism. So then you would think, okay, journalism's the major that you would choose. But I knew that I wanted to make it a little more broad than that in case, who knows, like, and I did an internship in news and everything. And I kind of was like, I don't think that's maybe right for me. And so communication was just the right choice all around in that sense. But I did an internship at Wipeout in LA, which was like an old show where, it's like a game show and everything. And I got that internship through an alumni at UWO. So that kind of changed
Mm.
the trajectory of my career in general. But then, I came back, I finished school at UWO, and then I connected with another alumni who was back and she was speaking at an alumni panel. So she was a creative director at ABC Entertainment, and ABC is owned by Disney. So I connected with her at that alumni event and I just kept in touch with her. I networked with her, and it was a couple months maybe before graduation that I reached out to her again. And we stayed in touch, and I asked her if she might have any internships or not even internships, but any jobs available at
Mhm.
ABC, because I'd done a few internships already and I was kind of looking for that full-time job. Um, and they didn't have any jobs available at ABC at the time, but they did have an internship. So she was like, I can't promise anything beyond this internship, but if you want to take it, come on out. I still had to interview it, do the whole process, but she encouraged me that, sometimes it could turn into full time after graduation and you just have to believe in yourself. So right after graduation in December of 2014, I packed up my little Honda Civic with my dad and we drove out on Route 66 to LA. And I
Wow.
took that internship at ABC, and it was in creative marketing. So that's kind of how I got into that in the first place. And so interned there for about 4 months. And then it turned into kind of like a part-time production assistant job. And even that wasn't guaranteed, but I just knew that if I could get out here and make those connections and network, that I believed that I would be able to make it into a full-time role. And then it did. I worked in the creative side, I worked in the production side, and then I was able to get an associate producer full-time gig at ABC. And then that's kind of what sparked that. I was at ABC for 7 years, moving up to a writer producer position there. And then about 4 years ago, I jumped over to the Hive, which is Disney's internal creative agency at the
Mhm.
studio. And that's kind of how I landed where I am now.
You mentioned the word networking several times there. Can you many of my audience are students, and can you tell them the importance of this thing called networking?
Yeah. It's
What is the importance of it?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that too, because I remember when I was in college, I would always hear this, and everyone's like, "You got to network, you got to network." I'm like, "Okay, I get it," but it truly is so important because it's all about communication. First of all, it's all about like those interpersonal relationships with these people that you're trying to network with, but it's really all about networking isn't just making the relationship and then like letting it sit forever and then reaching out when you need something. It's making those genuine connections with people way before you even are looking for a job or those things. It's all about planting seeds. So
Yes.
I will say, the job that I have at Disney Studios right now, I had interviewed for a position there many, many years before I even got the job there. And I didn't get the job at the time because I was underqualified for one role and I was overqualified for the other, just based on what they had available. But the people that I interviewed with, I made a connection with them. They really liked me. They were just like, it's not the right time right now. And so I kept that communication with them up, not to say, hey, do you guys have a job? Like, what can it was more about just keeping up the relationship. Hey, I just wanted to
Right.
say hi, see how you guys are doing, a genuine connection. And then 3 years later, they reached out to me and said, hey, we remembered you from this role that you had interviewed for. So that's what it means about planting those seeds.
Planting the seeds.
Mhm.
Amazing.
You see the fruition of that later, but yeah, that's really the main goal, I think.
Wow. So what kind of projects have you been working on since you've been out there in Hollywood?
Oh my gosh, it's been everything all over the map. When I was at ABC, I mainly worked in promo. So we would do, it's always been in creative marketing, but we would do the promotions for any of the shows on ABC. So I was the lead producer for How to Get Away with Murder, which was a show back, however many years ago.
Yeah.
And so I would make the weekly episodic promos where it would say next week on How to Get Away with Murder. And so we would do those promos, and then we would also do shoot spots, which like we would work with the talent from the shows to launch the next season of the show. So I did a lot of things on How to Get Away with Murder for that. I worked on Grey's Anatomy for a little while, just
Wow.
any of those main shows that were on the network. We also worked on, shows like the Oscars or American Idol or those live event shows. And it was always just kind of, doing the promos to get people to watch it. And then after that, that kind of is where I learned everything and how to work on under a tight deadline and how to put in a graphic request and how to work with talent. I did a lot of interviews with talent when I was there, which, those skills that I had learned in communication actually helped me a lot when I
Yeah.
was behind the camera interviewing these people. And
I
then
read somewhere that you interviewed the cast of Scandal. Is that true?
yes, yeah, Kerry Washington and
Oh my goodness.
Tony Goldwyn, and yeah, all of those folks, and Viola Davis from How to Get Away with Murder, and Ryan Seacrest. Like we would do a lot of those interviews because we're launching their show for the next season. So we would do or even when it was the end of a series, like
How did you interview those people? I'm a big Kerry Washington fan. How do you interview these people without getting like totally starstruck?
yeah.
I mean, was it like a nerve-wracking experience to interview these people?
Yeah, it was at first, but I started a lot lower. I wasn't like thrown into interviewing the big stars. It kind of like started and then it built up. But I think what I just tried to keep in mind was always, this is a real person. This is, they're not anything special, even though obviously they are, but you have to treat them like a friend and you have to treat them like a regular person versus, starstruck. But the one person I did get really starstruck on was John Stamos because he was my number one from
Yeah.
young. And so that was a big one for me. And funny enough, afterwards, I just went up to him and I told him, I did the whole interview and everything. And then I told him afterwards that, I've been a big fan of yours since I was young. And I just really appreciate the interview today. And then he was like, oh my gosh, we should take a photo. Like he was so nice and gracious. And it's like you treat them like a regular person first. And I think that's the best part of it.
You
Um,
know what's so great? You were a very hardworking student, and you're from Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is like this working class,
mhm.
hardworking town. I mean, did the work ethic that you got growing up in Kenosha and then the work ethic at UW Oshkosh, has that really helped you in
Oh,
your
a
career?
100%. Yeah, I think that's a great question and an observation too, because I think genuinely coming from the Midwest, we have a different vibe and a different work ethic, and just we're very hardworking and we want to, kind of prove ourselves. And like I genuinely notice people out in LA that are from the Midwest. I'm like, you're from the Midwest, aren't you? They're like, yeah, I'm from Minnesota, I'm from Wisconsin. Like you can tell every time because nobody's pretentious. They're really just hardworking people. And I think that has made a difference for me of just being from humble backgrounds and then coming into that.
Wow, that's great. Over the years, we've heard so many nightmare stories about Hollywood, right? Like, the Harvey Weinsteins and things like that. I mean, how much of what we hear in the media is real? I mean, is LA and Hollywood this
Yeah.
really extremely difficult place to make it?
Honestly, I think it's all about the perspective that you have, because like the door is always going to be open and closed for you. If you are saying, it's kicking me out or something, then it will be. You have to have the perspective and the mindset that you're going to make it, and then things will open up. But honestly, I've had a wonderful experience here. If I didn't, then I wouldn't have stayed as long as I have. I've been
Right.
here 10 years now. And so it's all about who you surround yourself with. And also, at a place for me like Disney, everybody's happy to be there. And genuinely have only had a great experience about it. So I think LA is going to be what you make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk now about your experience in your comm studies
Mhm.
program. Why originally did you decide to major in comm studies when you were here?
Yeah, I wanted to major in communication because I think, first of all, that's the most important thing that anybody can have is being able to communicate with other people. But I think I mentioned a little bit before, but I had thought about majoring in radio, TV, film, or majoring in journalism. But I wanted it to just be more broad so that I had the option to move into different fields if I wanted to, because I thought I might want to do on-air hosting, or I thought I might want to, do more writing. But at the end of the day, I wasn't sure. So I figured that communication would be the best course of study for me because it kind of encapsulated all of that stuff. And then I could get the best of both worlds by then double minoring in radio, TV, film, and journalism. But all of those skills that I've learned, I think communication is the top most important thing. And then the rest of it kind of is supplementary to that and also, just kind of helps and follows that. But yeah, that's pretty much the main reason why I decided to do it. And then I just liked the courses that were available as well.
What did you like about your experience in the courses at the time, if you can recall?
Yeah, I just remember, the professors, I mean, you and Jen and, everybody there was very individualized. Like I could kind of go to you guys and you would work with me specifically versus like the whole larger classrooms. Like you had that, but then you also just had that interpersonal relationship. Um, but I mean, there were so many great courses, and I think a lot of it was kind of, the skills in speaking, specifically public speaking, is a big one because I use that
Yeah.
every day. When I'm in big meetings and I have to be the one to talk, and those moments could be scary, but I felt like I learned how to do that in communication. And so the skills in speaking, and honestly too, the skills that you learn in listening, I feel like that's something that I learned in comm, but I still am working on every day. Like that's a big important part of communication is the listening side of it. Um, and it's just like that. I think too, like empathetic listening and like basically seeing both sides of an argument and all of those things, and just being able to kind of, you know, work through that with people and not be like, this is what it is. You kind of have to have that empathetic side of things. So that was a big thing that I learned in communication, and just kind of, how to be persuasive, how your voice is coming across. All of those things are what you learn when you're giving those speeches in communication class.
Yeah. Now, some people, when they hear about the comm studies major, they say, well, it sounds really general. There's not one career that it's attached to. If there was a student expressing that kind of hesitation, what would you tell them?
For me, that's what I liked about it. I liked that I mean, you can go any way with it. And I think that's the best part is you could decide, hey, actually, I think I want to go into this. Actually, I think I want to go into that. And communication is always going to be the main portion of the job. So that for me, that was what I liked about that because I was able to kind of keep it broad and I would have a great degree and learn great skills through the communication program and be able to apply it however I want because it's all transferable.
Absolutely. What was it like coming back as a distinguished alumni? We were
Oh,
so proud of you and
aw,
still are. What was that like for you to come back to Oshkosh and get
yeah.
that prestigious award?
Thank you. That was probably one of my favorite moments. And out of, all the awards that we talked about earlier, I think that's still my favorite one because that just shows that, the comm program really believed in me. They really helped me get to where I am. I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for the communication program at UWO, truly. And so coming back to that and being recognized among, with my professors and with my fellow, peers that also got that award. It was just a surreal moment for me. And I felt just genuinely proud to have been a part of the communication program and to have gone to UW Oshkosh because especially being out here too, like not many people are coming from the Midwest or they're coming from a school, in the Midwest like that. So for me, it was just like a really proud moment. And it's still one of my just most prized possessions is I got a little brick that is the replica of what goes in the foyer. And it's my boss just asked about it the other day. It's on my credential
Really?
at work. And he goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that was when I got the UW Oshkosh Distinguished Young Alumni Award. I'm so proud of it." So it's still a big source of pride for me. And I just am genuinely so grateful that the university recognized like that.
That's incredible. What is it like to live in Los Angeles? I mean, we have students from small towns that think about going to places like New York or LA or even Chicago. What are your thoughts on living in the big city? What has it been like for you? Was it a tough adjustment at first?
Yeah, it's a good question. It wasn't too tough of an adjustment for me. I'd always wanted to go to LA, so I was just enamored by the big city. I loved it. But I also had a network of people out here. Like
Right.
a lot of, there's a lot of RTF students that do come out here. So you kind of have that little bit of a basis or communications people where you can kind of meet with them ahead of time and kind of, ease into it. But also it was helpful for me that I had a job to go into because I was able to meet people through work right away. I wasn't out here for too long before I started my work right away. So, I mean, I love living in Los Angeles, and I know it could be an adjustment for people in a small town, but I think really what you just have to do is stay true to yourself and find your people. It takes a while. Like people are always coming in and out of LA, so you can make a friend and then a couple months later they move. So you kind of just have to be tenacious and resilient in those situations and just really believe in yourself and believe that you're going to be able to make it and things will fall into place. So LA is a great place.
Yeah. And you do get back to Wisconsin at least once a year, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going back in a couple weeks actually. I generally get back for Christmas and then I come back, once in the summer or something like that. But I love coming home. I love coming back to Wisconsin.
And I imagine that your family must be so thrilled at what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, they are very proud and they always encouraged me to come out to LA. So that was a big difference for me was that they were always supportive of it.
Wow.
Yeah, they actually just were out here a few weeks ago and we went to Disneyland and we actually shot some stuff for a spot that we're working on at the company. So that was really fun.
So now, what do you see if we think in terms of career path?
Mhm.
That you're not you and your team are nominated for an Emmy. That's huge. What do you see happening in the next 5 or 10 years? Do you want to be like part of a team that's nominated for an Oscar award? Like what do you see
I
happening
mean,
next?
that's the dream. But honestly, I just want to be making good creative work. I think, those type of awards and nominations and stuff, those are all great and those will follow, but the most important thing is making work that you feel proud of. And then, it's like if those things come with it, that's amazing and you're so happy, but it's never what it's about. It's always just about making something that you believe in and making good work. So I think I'm just excited to continue doing the work that I've been doing and that my team has been able to do, and just keep going down that path with creative, exciting pieces.
That's great. It sounds like critical to your success were those internships you talked about. Would you advocate for current students to do internships?
Oh, 100%. I think that's what equipped me to get the internship at Disney to begin with, or at ABC. But I had multiple internships when I was at
Yeah.
Oshkosh. I did first did an internship at Fox 6 News in Milwaukee, and then I did an internship at Wipeout, like I mentioned in LA. And then I did an internship at the career services. And I did that internship for maybe a year or 2 years. I did that for a while. And that's where I learned video production. So I learned how to edit there. And I think that's really important when I came out to LA. That was a really important skill for me to have. And I was able to build off of it. I would have learned it at Disney, but having that already coming into it, that was kind of what helped me, set me up for success. And then I had my fourth internship when I came out to ABC. So, and honestly, a lot of those internships were through getting it through either the communication program or the RTF program or all these programs at Oshkosh in general. That's how I got those internships in the first place. And that's genuinely what jump started my career. So I don't think I would be where I am if I hadn't had those internships. I think it's super important for networking and just like skill building in general.
Well, one thing I have to say is I always ask students in senior year to come up with some words to describe themselves. And often people will use the word driven. And, when people label themselves that way, I try to determine, okay, are they just using what they think is a good label or is that who they are? You seemed like someone at the time that really was driven. I mean, I could tell when you were always looking for activities to participate in that would benefit you down the line.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And, we talked earlier about work ethic and, you displayed it every minute that you were here. And it probably wasn't easy, right? I mean, part of college, there's a lot of distraction, right?
Oh, 100%. And also, yeah, I always just wanted to do as many activities as I could because I knew that that would serve me well in being able to get these internships, which would then help me in my career. Because, if you have to be able to show something on your resume. Like, and you make a resume when you're in college, but what do you have to put on that resume? Because you haven't had any jobs yet. So putting that you worked for the TV station or you worked for the radio station or you wrote for the newspaper or all these different things, that's your resume. So in order to get those internships, I had to be able to show something for it. So I always wanted to make sure that I was doing as much as I could in order to show and prove that, hey, I'll be a good hire because I already did all of this stuff at Oshkosh.
Absolutely. And finally, if we have current students that are interested, especially in the entertainment industry, is it okay to give them your email
Of
address or have
course.
them connect with you on LinkedIn?
Of course. Yeah, I would love that. And like I said, that's the whole reason that I even got to where I am and what helped jumpstart my career. And alumni kind of changed my life and allowed, she opened that door for me. And so I'm always happy to, help however I can to give it back to students now. That's what it's
Paige,
all
thank
about.
you. Yes, thank you so much for doing this today, and best of luck on that Emmy Award.
Thank you. Thank
We're
you.
gonna be we're gonna be really rooting for you.
Thank you. Fingers crossed. And I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me and for everything that you did throughout my time at UWO. I just appreciate it so much. And yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, take care.
Thank you. You too.